Hello everyone, this is PKO Entertainment and we are back again, and this time we're going to talk about Birds of Prey, and in particular the opening weekend box office, the overall total so far, and what it can gain going forward. Is it a success or is it a failure? Now, for anybody who doesn't know, it had recently its opening weekend at the US box office where it grossed 33 million, and overall I think worldwide it's grossed 81 million so far. So as soon as these results came out, there's been so much um, inquisition, debate, reflection. In many cases there's been a mockery of these results. Many have deemed this an absolute failure. And we've pointed to several reasons, of which I'm going to go through and discuss whether those reasons are valid or not. But I think before we do that, the first thing we've got to do is just get a bit of perspective here and actually look at Birds of Prey itself, the brand, the sort of the property, and really determine what sort of box office results would you expect. Okay, now it won't. You would never do Avengers numbers, right? Which is normally 1.5 to 2 million. You wouldn't do a standard DC movie, which is anything from 500 million to 800 million. Aquaman being the exception of breaking that $1 billion barrier. Okay, so you wouldn't expect it to do something as bad as the recent Hellboy movie, which I think grossed less than 50 million. It was between 50 and 70 million worldwide, that was. So that was a complete absolute flop. That's a movie you could say definitely was a flop, 100%. But Birds of Prey, think about it. It's not a well-known property like a Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman that everybody knows, whether you're a comic book fan or not comic book fan. It's not an MCU title. So what would you expect Birds of Prey to really gross? Okay, Harley Quinn is the title character, and within the comic book community, people are fans of there's a recent animated series that's come out. You have the new 52 version of Harley Quinn, and then you have the go-to original Inception, which was the Batman animated series, and that version is still deemed now the most well-liked, popular version of Harley Quinn. Okay, but a Harley Quinn movie, forget about who's in the lead role, forget about what the marketing is, forget about what the trailers look like. Okay, if you said right now a Harley Quinn movie is going to be made, what would you realistically expect that to gross? Okay, so you would say anything from, I guess, 200 to 400 million worldwide. If it got within that range, you could definitely say that is a good success. I know comic book movies are the dominant genre, and nowadays they're making billions. 800 to a billion, whether that's the MCU, whether that's DC. Deadpool as well normally makes about 7 to 800 million. Um, the Fox X-Men movies, comparatively, when you look back at the year they were out, they were massive box office successes as well. But those are all well-known brands, right? We'll take off Deadpool in a minute. We'll talk about Joker in a minute. But those are well-known brands. Birds of Prey is not a well-known brand amongst mainstream audiences. Harley Quinn is not a well-known character amongst mainstream audiences, right? So 200 to 300 million, or 200 to 400 million, would be a good box office take for a Birds of Prey movie or a Harley Quinn movie. So just going before we go into the reasons, I think we just need to get some perspective before we analyse what went wrong or what people deem went wrong in the box office performance. So it's grossed 33 million in the weekend, 81 million overall. The budget, I believe, for this movie was around 84 million. I think people will increase that to maybe 90, 95 million, but it was 100. It was under 100 million. So technically, you can say it's broke even. Okay, right? 81 million to worldwide box office, 84 million to produce. Now, the general rule of thumb for any blockbuster is that if you have whatever your budget is to break even, you have to double that take. Okay, so just keep the numbers easy. So 100 million to produce, you would want at least 200 million worldwide to cover the costs, and then generally you'd want to again duplicate that amount again to start creeping into a profit. So if a film costs 100 million, you'd want to at least make 300, maybe to 350 million to then class it as a profitable sum, right? So we go on that basis. Birds of Prey is 84 million, let's say, right? So we're looking at around about 280, I would say, 280 to 300 million, okay, where we could start saying that's the sort of break or just beyond the break even point, okay. Now if it went beyond that, and let's say it made 325 to 350 million, that would be a profitable take, right? I know in the US domestic market, the studios take a bigger percentage of the box office than what they do internationally. And yeah, this will do well to get to 70, 80 million domestically in the US. But overall, worldwide, if Birds of Prey got to 325 to 350 million, I would say that's a profitable outcome. Now, comparatively to all the other comic book movies and brands I just mentioned before, yes, you could say that's a failure. And particularly now when comic book movies are such prominence, you know, they are the number one genre. I know you had Pixar beforehand, and you had things like the Transformers movies and the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but make no mistake now, the comic book movies, the superhero genre, is the most box office potent genre, certainly for the last, I'd say 5 years, at least 5 to 6 years minimum. Okay, you remember the MCU, yes, did start 10 years ago, but those are very moderate to very good successes. And then once you had the first Avengers movie, then that's what elevated then into the box office juggernauts that they are now. Okay, so that's just a bit of context and perspective before we go into the reasons as why it didn't get the sort of perceived amounts people thought. Okay, so we're going to go to the reasons now. The first reason I think we need to look at is just a January release date. Okay, now January is generally time that people don't really go to movies as such. You know, they've had Christmas and they've bought all their presents and they just want a bit of downtime, and you've got the sort of January blues of going back to work. You know, that's not the most exciting time to go to movies. Normally, it's your summertime, which is from May to sort of July, August. You have a bit of a downturn, maybe pick up over the sort of Halloween season, October time, and then you go down again until you get to the December time, when you will have an event movie such as Star Wars, or going a bit further back, you know, you'd have Lord of the Rings. They would come out every Christmas, okay? So in generally, the summertime is your prominent time to really promote your comic book movies. And I think Birds of Prey would have fared a lot better had it been in a summer release rather than a January release, when there's not really a lot of movies around. Any movies that are prominent at the box office are movies that came out December and have got nominations for the Oscars, so the buzz sort of carries over. Okay, so that's the first reason I believe. The second reason, I know a lot of people will not agree, is the R rating. Now, the problem you've got when you have an R rating is that you do limit a younger audience that go to these movies, and that younger audience is quite a large demographic for these comic book blockbusters. Okay, you know, kids love to see the sort of aesthetic figures being put to the screen and put in live action. Okay, so for Birds of Prey or Harley Quinn, whatever you want to call it, your first outing, you're already making it R rated. So you're already cutting out the sort of audience, the younger audience that can go to these movies. Now, I know people are going to talk about other movies. I'll get to that in a minute, but I don't think the R rating helps. I think it would have been a lot better going for a PG-13 rating that would have increased its chances of being successful at the box office. But this will lead into other reasons now that why the R rating didn't work. So I know people are going to bring up particularly two movies recently of comic books that were R rated and made loads of money at the box office. But we're going to the third reason now, which links to this, which is the marketing itself. Now, by going from the trailers and the concept of Birds of Prey, we all know that this was aimed a lot at a female demographic. Okay, a female demographic. It was going for very much this sort of LGBT tone and a feminine audience. Okay, now whether you like it or not, the primary audience for these comic book movies are male. Right, it's mainly men that go and see these comic book movies. It's mainly men that buy these comic books. Yes, of course, females do buy comic books and females do go and see these movies. We're not doubting that, and I'm not stating in any way that a female can't like comic books or they're not supposed to. I'm not stating that in any way, but you cannot deny that the main primary audience is male. Right, these characters themselves are created by men. You know, the character Harley Quinn was created by, you know, Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, who created the Batman animated series, right? So when you specifically go for a female demographic in your marketing, you are cutting out a large share of potential audience, okay? Now, people will say, well, males, they may not have gone and seen this anyway, but it's been proven statistically that the high percentage of people that went to see Birds of Prey on the opening weekend were males. And in general, males, you know, they love the theme, you know, Wonder Woman, you know, everybody went to see Wonder Woman, okay? And Captain Marvel, okay, I know that's a controversial subject, we'll talk about another day, but a lot of males went to see Captain Marvel. A lot of males went to see Wonder Woman. A lot of males are going to go and see the Wonder Woman 1984. A lot of males are going to see Black Widow. Okay, because those movies haven't specifically aimed their marketing at a certain demographic. They're making themselves a lot more accessible. Okay, and that was the problem with Birds of Prey. By making it female orientated, the marketing, you're cutting out a primary core of potential viewers. Okay, now this leads back to the R rating. Okay, so you've cut your audience down to females, right? Then you're saying, due to the R rating, that only older females can watch your movie, or the LGBT community. Okay, so you're cutting down your audience share even more, right? So you've kind of alienated the male viewers, and then you've alienated the younger female viewers. So again, you're just cutting down the potential amount of box office that you can gain and that can go to watch your movies. Okay, so the number one rule of any blockbuster or movie in general is to make it accessible as possible. The more demographics you can hit, or rather, don't be specific to any demographic, just show the story, show the plot as it is, the more chance you've got of having a higher box office take. So that was the other reason, the marketing to only a specific demographic, alienating out other potential audiences. That goes hand in hand with the female orientated promotion and the R rating. Okay, so we now go to the next reason, which I believe as well is the most important, and that was the faithfulness or the lack of faithfulness to the source material. Okay, now just in general, the real appeal of these superhero movies is that fans can look at what these characters that they've been reading about for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and actually see them on the live action screen. That's the magic of the comic book movies. That's a lot of the reason why they're so prominent. Comic book television series as well, is that fans can get excited because we always had this cynical view way back, where what you're looking at on your comic book pages is just too difficult. It's too outlandish to put on screen. You know, we have the same opinions with manga, right? We just think this is too much. There's no way they'll be able to transfer this onto live action. So when we see the trailers or screenshots of a live action adaptation and it looks exactly what it is in the comics, there's a thrill, there's an excitement, there's a kind of wonder, there's an awe. Wow, look at how they've been able to take what's on the pages and put it on screen, right? So when you get that, you get a positive buzz, and then that trends on social media, Twitter, other media platforms. So then the general moviegoer will look at that positive buzz, and that will encourage them to go and watch the movie. Now the problem you had with Birds of Prey, as soon as they saw the initial footage, the screenshots, etc., etc., people looked at it, and straight away they looked at Huntress, how she looks. They looked at Black Canary. They looked at Cassandra Cain. They looked at the fact that there's no Oracle, as we know, is an original founding member of the Birds of Prey. They looked at the footage and they basically said, that's not Birds of Prey. That's not Birds of Prey. Okay? Now we go to Deadpool and Joker, which were far more representative of their comic book versions, particularly Deadpool. But in Birds of Prey, people, they felt upset that this is the first time we're seeing these characters on movie. I know they've been represented in the CW shows like Black Canary, Huntress, and of course we've had them in the Justice League Unlimited shows, but this is the first cinematic appearance, okay? So they want to see the first cinematic appearance be as close as it can to the source material. And let's be real here, it's not that much of a struggle to put Black Canary as she is, the blonde hair, the corset top, the fishnets, Huntress, the mask, the purple mask, the sort of sleek black costume, and the short little crossbow. Those are not difficult to pull off, right? We're in a time when we've seen Thanos, we've seen Ant-Man shrink down and then he's increased in size. We've even seen Shazam. DC went full on with Shazam with the padded costume and the yellow insignia. Even with Aquaman, right? He had the gold-plated armor. He had the green sort of leggings. They had the trident. You look at Ocean Master and Black Manta, right? Near on spot on, 100% faithful to the costume look within the comics, right? So if you can pull off all those characters, then Huntress and Black Canary should be a piece of cake. It shouldn't even be an issue. But when you look at these versions, they just look very, if you look, vanilla compared to the comic book versions of the characters. So fans looked at that and they said, what is this? What's going on? You're calling this Birds of Prey. It doesn't look like Birds of Prey. So then you get the negative buzz, you get the negative backlash, and you'll have loads of people going on YouTube analysing the reasons why. And then the general moviegoer looks at that negative buzz, it looks at that negative backlash, and then it sort of puts them off. They think, well, Birds of Prey, not a lot of people are excited about this. I don't really want to watch this movie. The key thing, well, I say comic book movies, but for any adaptation, whether it's a novel, graphic novel, a film, a television series, etc., what the fans want to see most is as close as he can to the source material. You may have to make a few tweaks here and there, but in general, they want to see what they're reading from the page exploded on the screen. That's the magic they're looking for. And Birds of Prey didn't do that. Okay, so you got the backlash from that, and that's what led a lot of fans to hate on this movie, and that fed through, I think, to the mainstream public, who were put off, by the fact that there was a backlash towards this movie. So now people are going to go through these arguments that I've made: the January release date, the certain demographic, the R rating, the lack of faithfulness to the source material, and they're going to put up recent two examples of an R-rated comic book movie, which of course are Deadpool and Joker, and those are two massive box office successes. To an extent, particularly with Deadpool, if we focus on first, that wasn't unknown. That wasn't as well known in the mainstream media, like I explained for Birds of Prey, like I explained for Harley Quinn. So everybody say, well, you're saying Deadpool, that wasn't well known, that was R-rated, but that made loads of money. Okay, well, we look at Deadpool, right? if you remember, Deadpool had that test footage. They released test footage, which was a really smart strategy at the time, I think. They would put on, I think it was a 5-6 minute clip, I can't remember how long it was, of Deadpool. I think he was fighting people in the alley or something like that. And people looked at that and it started trending on the internet because they looked at that footage and they said, wow, that Deadpool looks like just he does in the comics, right? And he did. He had the actual costume, he had the actual demeanor and the personality that you would expect from Deadpool, okay? So because of that, you had a positive buzz. Fox then realised that gave them more confidence to greenlight the movie, and it cost around 50 million, I think, Deadpool. Okay, and then they just built on the perception from that. And again, what they did with Deadpool is, in the marketing, there was no specific demographic that they aimed for. So there wasn't this case of, well, this is only for men, this is only for boys. No, they just showed Deadpool as he is, breaking the fourth wall, lots of jokes, lots of self-parody, lots of self-depreciation, lots of sarcasm, sort of rude, sort of juvenile humour, okay? But that was accessible to, obviously not younger viewers, but older viewers who were men, older viewers who were female, older viewers who were of a different gender type, okay? Or sexual orientation. Okay, so it didn't alienate any specific group, okay? So it made itself more accessible, right? Birds of Prey didn't do that, right? So that's why you can't just compare. Well, say Deadpool was R-rated, that made loads of money, so Birds of Prey should have replicated Deadpool. It was a different approach in Deadpool. Is there much more of a different marketing strategy with Deadpool? Okay, faithful to the source material, the look of the character, and the fact that they didn't market to any specific demographic, alienating any more potential audiences. Okay, so that's why Deadpool is different. So we go on to Joker now. We could, there's been so many debates about Joker, but in general, Joker was well known by everybody. We all know what the Joker is. He's the most notorious of Batman's villains. Okay, one of the most iconic. Many people will put him the most iconic villain of all time. Okay, so you already have that brand familiarity. I'm of the cynical view that the actual movie Joker didn't start off as Joker. I think it started off as just a typical downbeat art house drama about a man who descends into madness through mental illness, and maybe there was it was more of a homage to the Scorsese films King of Comedy and Taxi Driver, and maybe there was a sequence somewhere where he dresses up in a clown. Somebody thought, bang, this could be a Joker origin movie, and then it built on from there. Okay, so first of all, Joker, you've got the brand recognition. Second of all, Joker, you've had this whole media furore. Okay, it previewed earlier, I think, at a Venice Festival, where it got mega buzz, mega acclaim. Everybody was giving it 10 out of 10 ratings. So you have that positive buzz already before it's come out, before you've really seen any sort of footage. You've got that positive buzz already. Birds of Prey didn't have any positive buzz beforehand. Okay, then when that positive buzz died down because it was screened a month early, we then had the whole media kind of scaremongering. This is going to attract incels, this is going to cause people to cause violence among the streets, police are going to be aware of what's going to go on at cinemas, you shouldn't watch this movie, etc, etc. So people argue that was negative buzz, but that created a notoriety around Joker, a controversial around Joker, which just attracted more people to watch it, right? People wanted to see what exactly this dangerous, kind of provocative, controversial product was about, right? And Warner Brothers played on that. If you actually notice, Warner Brothers never came out with a statement to kind of fend off these statements and deny that Joker was going to be this huge sort of provocative film that's going to cause violence over the streets, because they knew the notoriety was causing people to constantly talk about their movie. Okay, so on the one hand, you've got the aspect of Joker movie without Batman. It's a Joker origin story. Will it work? Will it won't work? So that's already causing people to talk about it. And then you had the whole sort of media furore um, elements as well, which again kept people talking about it. So you can't compare Joker to Birds of Prey because there were so many other different talking points about Joker, plus the fact that you did have the brand familiarity because it's the Joker. Everybody knows the Joker, right? And there was an interesting concept in trying to tell a joking story without any connections to Batman, even though that turned out not to be the case. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but you watch Joker, they couldn't resist. They couldn't resist connecting it in the end, despite the fact Todd Phillips coming out saying this is standalone, we're not going to connect to any sort of comic book universe. Well, they clearly had elements which they did, but that's another debate. But the point is, Joker was a whole different kind of talking point. What were the talking points in Birds of Prey? What was the story? What was the concept? What was the plot? What was really interesting about the kind of narrative they were trying to tell? What was it? All we had was Harley Quinn and these elaborate sequences. She's beating people here, she's running around in a shopping trolley here, she's in this singing number here, you've got all these colours all over the place, you've got Ewan McGregor's Black Mask, who's not even wearing a black mask. Again, that's another note to not sticking to the source material, or not giving the impression you're sticking to the source material, okay? Because fans, again, were disappointed that the first cinematic appearance of Black Mask wasn't true to the source material. And that's it. We had no full-on take on what the concept was of Birds of Prey. So again, that just lessened people's interest, particularly from a mainstream audience. And I'll keep going back to a mainstream audience because you have to, if you're going to be successful and promote successful movies, that's the audience you have to reach out to. Of course, you have to tap into the people who are invested in these characters, which I've covered by being faithful to the source material, but you also have to branch out to the mainstream public. And if you've got nothing to say about your movie in terms of a plot or a storyline, then the mainstream public isn't going to really be as interested. They're just going to go on what's trending, which is the negative buzz following the more hardcore fans' outrage at the lack of faithfulness to the source material, and they've got nothing else to talk about. Oh, that Birds of Prey movie, that's the movie that the fans aren't liking because it's not reflecting the source material. That's it. You know, the statements they come up with, Birds of Prey is about misogyny. You know, so as a general viewer, you've got a movie that's not getting good buzz because it's not faithful to the source material, and it's about misogyny, showing males as being misogynists. Why is the general moviegoer going to want to watch that? Less of a talking point, less things to feed off than what you had with the Joker. You see, so it's those. I know those are the two main examples people want to use in comparison to Birds of Prey, but from my opinion, you can't, because those are two very different kind of animals, if you like, compared to what Birds of Prey was. I just think that R rating, the mistake in alienating certain audiences in your marketing, and most importantly, lack of faithfulness to the source material. Because had you been more faithful to the source material, again, as I said, you would have created a positive vibe already, which you could have then used to carry on and generate good word of mouth to more non-comic book fans, and they could have then come on to watch your movie. That in general is the secret of the MCU, right? Yeah, they've made a few missteps, as I mentioned before, but in general, Iron Man looked like Iron Man. Captain America, Thor looked like their characters on screen, right? Ant-Man looked like Ant-Man, right? Black Panther looked like Black Panther, okay? So, you know, you've got to really think, you know, Warner Brothers, if they're going to try and do, you know, take a smaller property, such as your Birds of Prey, and Harley Quinn, I know she's more well known than Birds of Prey, but still, in the mainstream populace, she's not Batman, she's not Superman, she's not Wonder Woman, okay, where everybody knows who they are. You have to really kind of respect the source material more and get the original fans on side first. And what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to sort of say that fans are easily manipulated. Just because something reflects truly what's on the source material from a visual standpoint, that doesn't automatically mean it's going to be a good movie, but that gives you a good head start. Get the original fans on side, they can talk good about your movie, and then you can use that positive buzz to help attract non-fans to watch your movie. So those were the main reasons. I think that Birds of Prey, we say failed, I'm going to say underperformed, because we're going into week 2. Okay, so we don't know. Birds of Prey could pick up or have a strong holdover. It's Valentine's Day's weekend. I don't know. Oh well, Sonic the Hedgehog, I believe, is coming out this weekend. Okay, so yeah, it will lose a lot of that to the younger audiences, perhaps, but it could have a decent hold, and then it could slowly crawl its way and build its way up to that kind of 250 to 300 million dollar range I was talking about. It's happened before in the past. Edge of Tomorrow, I believe, only opened to $10 million, and that was in the sort of post slipstream of the Tom Cruise, the sort of anti-Tom Cruise era, the Scientology, the jumping on the couch. He was slowly beginning to come out of that phase. There was still some sort of negativity towards him, and Edge of Tomorrow didn't open very well, but it steadily built its performance over weeks and weeks, and it ended up grossing, I think, 340 350 million. Someone can fact correct me on that. Now, I'm not saying Edge of Tomorrow and Birds of Prey are similar projects, but I'm just saying it is possible for a movie to open up low and still build its way through performances. Pirates of the Caribbean, okay, have opened up well below expectations, have had negative perceptions, but still gone on to gross very well at the box. Transformers, okay, each installment had negative perception by the critics and public in general. How many times did so many people say, oh, not another Transformers movie, when is Michael Bay gonna stop? These Transformers movies are awful. But they still made loads of money. So it's not out of the realms of the possibility that Birds of Prey could have a decent hold in its second weekend, as unlikely as it is, and then build up from there and get to a point where you could say, okay, for a Birds of Prey movie or a Harley Quinn movie, whatever you want to call it, hit a respectable box office total. Okay, and for me, 250 to 300 million, anything above that, I think that's a good take for this type of comic book property. There's no way anybody can sit here and tell me you're expecting this to make 500 million, 1 billion, 1.5 billion. You can't tell me that. Okay, now people will say, but Peter, what about Ant-Man? That was unknown property. True, but Ant-Man was part of the MCU. Ant-Man was coming off, Age of Ultron. Okay, the next installment of the MCU, so you've got that built-in momentum there already. Aquaman, okay, Aquaman was more well known than Birds of Prey. I know people say Aquaman was more of a mocked type of character, but you still had that recognizability with Aquaman. Plus, you had Jason Momoa. Okay, he's not in your Leonardo DiCaprio, Denzel Washington box office prolific status, but you had lots of Jason Momoa fans following this movie. Plus, you look at Aquaman, as I've mentioned before. Look at the look of all the characters. Look at the way it explored Atlantis, and it went full balls to the wall, deep in terms of the visual look and the visual aesthetic of the characters and the Atlantis, and how it followed true to the origin of Aquaman. Okay, people looked at that movie and thought, wow, visually that's amazing, visually that looks like the comic books, right? So despite not having a well-known character, again, as I said, that faithfulness to the source material brought in a positive buzz. Okay, and that's what led Aquaman to then build on its momentum. Now, had a Birds of Prey movie been stuck closely to the source material, I'm not saying that would have made it generate 120 million opening box weeks. I'm not saying that, but it could have given it a much more positive buzz, which then could have propelled it to a much more higher box office take, which could have been 50 million, 60 million. it could have been even better when you could have had a separate Harley Quinn movie on its own, and then the Birds of Prey movie on its own, right? And then if the two were successful, then maybe you could have had a Birds of Prey sequel, and then had Harley Quinn participate in that second movie overall. Maybe that's the strategy they should have taken. Let us get to know Birds of Prey first on their own. The true Birds of Prey, Oracle, Huntress, Black Canary. Let us have Harley Quinn and a standalone movie where she can sort of be the sort of ex-criminal on the run from other people trying to sort of get to her now that she's split up with the Joker. And then once those two movies are successful, then you can bring those two together and you might have generated more money. I don't know. But gone on long enough now, 35 minutes. So those are my overall thoughts. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. I know there's a lot of people that are going to argue against what I think the reasons are. They're going to come up with more reasons. I know there's ongoing debate after this, and will be interesting to see what went on or what happens in the second box office weekend and the third weekend going on after that. But let me know your comments in the below belief, and I will comment more on the second box office take and the third box office take as we come along. So for now, take care of yourselves, and I will see you very soon.